As the night deepened, the oil lamp was moved inside. Song Yu sat at his desk, head bowed as he wrote. The Calico cat lay on the windowsill, face close to the center of the window. She peered at the sky outside through a narrow crack. She watched while talking to the Taoist priest behind her, not even turning her head. Why do they set off those things during the New Year? Fireworks? Yes. They look pretty. That's true. It's that simple. Is the New Year celebrated only once a year? Of course. It would be nice to celebrate it twice. How did you celebrate the New Year in the past? I spent it in the temple. How did you celebrate there? I spent it in the temple. Song Yu didn't feel annoyed or helpless. He just continued to write with the string loop of his brush swaying while patiently asking without looking up, what was different from usual? I ate a lot of meat and caught a lot of mice. Did you catch mice even during the New Year? Yes. Hard work. A little bit. Song Yu couldn't help but look up at her. The little cat's eyes were round and wide open, fixed on the narrow crack. Though the fireworks outside were sparse, she watched intently, unwilling to blink. Such an honest and pitiful cat. However, this era was like this. Even in peace and prosperity, the splendor of fireworks belonged only to a few. New Year's Eve belonged to only a few. If you don't believe it, just listen. Late into a windy, rainy night when the crowds have dispersed, someone still calls out by the lamp, selling tangyuan. \\\\*. The first day of the second year of Ming. After eating tangyuan, Song Yu walked along the street and arrived at the northern market, Cloud Talk Canopy. Perhaps because it was the first day of the new year, Cloud Talk Canopy was nearly full even though Song Yu had arrived early. This time, he could only get an ordinary seat while paying the ordinary price. As usual, he ordered a pot of tea and sat down to slowly savor it. He heard old Mr. Zhang cough twice, and then began again. Wishing everyone an auspicious new year. As mentioned earlier, Chen Zi's surprise attack from behind directly struck Ianki's stronghold. The northern tribes had no choice but to send envoys to sue for peace, ceding territory and paying reparations, as well as acknowledging the emperor as their sovereign. This battle ended with our great Yan's victory. Besides Marshal Ma's excellent deployment of troops, the greatest credit undoubtedly goes to Chen Zi. Song Yu sat with his tea, listening quietly. Today was the last chapter of the Battle of Lanshui. Just write a story with a beginning and an end. But each chapter only lasted about half an hour, hardly enough for a whole afternoon. General Chen Zi's story ends here for now. The general is still guarding the north, and the northern tribes are too terrified to come down south to graze their horses. His legend continues. Tomorrow we'll narrate the tales of gods and ghosts. Whether wind or rain, my fees are affordable, merely earning enough to support my family. If you've enjoyed it, I hope you continue to support me. With that, this story concluded. Old Mr. Zhang lifted his tea bowl, taking a few unhurried sips before glancing at the audience below. There's still some time this afternoon, so I'll tell you some scattered stories. If any of you have something you'd like to hear, or something you missed previously and want to hear again, feel free to mention it. As long as everyone is willing to listen, I'll tell it. Immediately, someone in the audience shouted, asking to hear the story of Master Guangheng at Taiyan Temple from last autumn. Immediately, voices of agreement echoed. All right. Then I'll tell you what I know. If there are any inaccuracies, please correct me. Clearing his throat, the old gentleman began again. Starting with the tale of the earth-traversing burglar, he even described the burglar's experiences before he started stealing, eventually getting to Master Guangheng. He recounted the monk's chance encounter with a young man in the temple, his remorse and spontaneous human combustion before the Buddha. He talked about how Constable Luo solved the case, which shocked all of Yidu. Song Yu continued to listen quietly in the audience while sipping tea. Although he had played a significant role in the case of Master Guangheng, he truly knew fewer details than the old gentleman. In addition, the old gentleman's skillful use of words, brilliant sentence structures, and emotional expression added flair. When describing the goods stolen by the burglar and the rare treasures discovered in the search of Taiyan Temple, his delivery was fluent and fast. When narrating Master Guangheng's repentance and pleas for mercy, his imitation of his tone was remarkably true to life. When discussing the Yamen constables turning out in full strength, he even vocally mimicked footsteps, creating tension. It was as if he had written a draft and rehearsed beforehand. It was both natural and very exciting. The storyteller was indeed very skilled. Song Yu had listened to him for 6 months. Each session lasted at least half a day, yet he always spoke clearly from beginning to end, with an energetic, resonant voice that was clearly audible even with a noisy audience. These days, nothing fake could stand the test. true skills were indispensable. After Master Guangheng's story, the audience was deeply drawn to those fantastic Taoist arts and miraculous tales, and started asking various questions. Someone asked about the young man's identity. Someone asked where he could learn Taoist arts. Someone asked where to find immortals. The old gentleman, adept and knowledgeable, answered each question according to his knowledge, gradually leading into more and more mysterious and miraculous stories and legends. It was rumored that the immortal Yunding Mountain in Pingzhu was shrouded in mist and clouds all year. One could not see the summit from the foot of the mountain, or the foot from the summit. The mountain hosted all 4 seasons, and some claimed to have seen immortals at the peak before. Another rumor spoke of a land north of Yuzhou that was filled with Chinese parasol trees. Each tree was ancient, and so tall they reached the clouds. Those who visited during the solstices might see phoenixes fly over and alight on the trees, grooming their feathers. Another tale spoke of an insurmountable high mountain in the southernmost part of Yunzhu. Beyond the high mountain, there was a paradise hidden from the world, where some have reportedly seen true dragons. Stories of strange affairs in the jianghu, the imperial court's state preceptor, northern household deities and illegitimate gods, southern witchcraft and goo poisons, the world of demons deep in the mountains, the ghostly halls beneath their feet, illusory cities that frequently appear and disappear, and a village which had been burning in subterranean fire for 1,000 years without extinguishing. A corner of this world's mysterious and fantastical affairs had already been revealed within the time it took to drink a cup of tea on that stage. Song Yu grew increasingly intrigued. Finally, the session ended. The old gentleman was thirsty and lifted his teacup to drink water. However, he didn't leave. He watched the audience depart, adhering strictly to traditional performer etiquette. Song Yu sat for a while, before going forward to greet him. "Oh my!" The old gentleman didn't slight him despite his youth, quickly returning the bow and bowing even deeper than him. "You're a regular guest." "Yes," Song Yu nodded. "Since arriving in Yidu half a year ago, I've come daily to listen to your stories, seldom missing a session." "Thank you for your patronage." "It's because you're an excellent storyteller." "What is this about?" "I'm a hermit from Zhu Commandery, Linquan County, who has descended the mountain to travel the world. Passing through Yidu, I've stayed here temporarily for 6 months. Now that spring has begun and the weather is gradually warming, it's time to leave." Song Yu bowed again to the old gentleman. "I came specifically to bid you farewell." "It's too much of an honor." The old gentleman hurriedly bowed too, and then cupped his hands. "I wish you a pleasant and smooth journey." "Thank you." "You're welcome." "I wonder about the immortal Yunding Mountain and lands where phoenixes perch and dragons soar that you mentioned earlier. How much of it is true?" Song Yu paused. "This journey is not just for a year or two. If it's on the way, I'd like to visit those places you have mentioned to seek traces of immortals." "So that's it. Would you mind sharing more?" "Haha, why not? Please tell me." Immortal Yunding Mountain has been a legend in Pingzhu for a few hundred years. Many claim to have seen immortals there. Actually, it's embarrassing, but I've only heard about it and not really seen them myself. As for the truth of those people's claims, I can't say how much is true. Old Mr. Zhang laughed sheepishly. However, over the past few centuries, many scholars and famous people have frequently visited immortal Yunding Mountain to seek traces of immortals as well as recluses who aspired toward immortality. Some seek immortality, others longevity, while others simply seek freedom and ease. However, please consider this. How many have actually become immortals? How many have attained longevity? And how many have achieved true freedom and ease? "Thank you," Song Yu nodded. This old Mr. Zhang had only heard the tales. However, he didn't believe them based on his decades of life experience and worldly knowledge, but it was just difficult for him to say so directly. As for the Qingtong Fengaming Mountain north of Yuzhou, it was recorded in the previous dynasty's Xianxia notes by Cheng Anbo. Many have claimed to see it since, though I've never seen it myself. "I see." Old Mr. Zhang found this more credible. "And south of Yunzhu, beyond Qian Mountain, is the paradise hidden from the world I mentioned. A true dragon has lived for a long time there, often hovering in the clouds and spouting mist." Old Mr. Zhang paused. "My father has seen it with his own eyes in his youth, and he told me this personally. But the world changes, who knows how it is now." Seen it with his own eyes, Song Yu was momentarily somewhat surprised. Dragons existed, and they came in countless forms. Actually, it wasn't that dragons changed much, but that various living creatures who had gained cultivation skills were often called dragons by humans. Instance, someone traveling deep in the mountains might see a giant python with horns blowing out vapor. Filled with terror and shock, he would call it a dragon. A boatman might see a black shadow in the water that easily caused waves and think it was a dragon. Even some water creatures which were aggressive by nature were also called dragons. Even someone keeping a snake in a well to observe water quality might, after a long time, regard it as a dragon due to its perceived spirituality. However, according to Hidden Dragon Temple, true dragons went extinct a long time ago. If there was a true dragon, he must go to see it for himself. Haha, old Mr. Zhang looked up at him and couldn't help laughing twice. If you're interested, sit down here and I'll tell you in detail. I'll trouble you to do so. Songyu ordered 2 more pots of tea. They found seats nearby and sat down. Like good friends who have known each other for years, they talked deep into the night. Old Mr. Zhang recounted many interesting places in a row with more detail than when he was on stage. What he knew well, he would explain clearly to him how to get there and how to find it. What he was less sure about, he also did his best to share fully what he knew, letting Songyu decide whether to go himself and how to explore by himself if he decided to go. It was late at night when the two finally said their goodbyes and parted ways. Old Mr. Zhang stood at the alley entrance. With the lantern's light, one could see the fine rain falling from the sky, but he gazed at the figure of Songyu leaving while braving the rain, with a puzzled look in his eyes. Hidden Dragon Temple of Yinyang Mountain. It sounded familiar, but it was likely something he'd heard in his youth. Chapter 39, Just Going East. The 5th day of the 1st month of the lunar year, also the beginning of spring. Songyu was packing his traveling bags in the courtyard. All clothes must be taken. There weren't many clothes, so they didn't take up much space. Water bags, dry rations, pots, bowls, teacups, brush, ink, paper, inkstone, yudijisheng, also including the leftover meat hanging from the kitchen rafters. Although not many items were taken, none of the essentials could be left behind. The road ahead would be long. Eating in the wind and sleeping in the dew was inevitable. The spring chill required warm items for the night. The felt blanket given by Prefect Yu was top quality, warmer than a mattress. It didn't take up much space when folded. In addition, bringing another thin blanket bought at the temple fair ensured comfort even in deserted mountains and countryside temples. In this era, there was also a bedding bag like a saddle bag that he bought at the temple fair. It was commonly used by traveling merchants and soldiers, sturdy and spacious. Once packed, it was placed on the horse's back. The conical bamboo hat and woven rush raincoat were hung on top. The juju-bred horse stood motionless obediently, allowing him to arrange everything. The past 2 days marked the beginning of spring, the start of the life force of all living things when the vitality was strongest. This wisp of vitality was very beneficial for all living things in the world. This year's first strand of beginning of spring spiritual energy at the foot of the mountain was different. Songyu bestowed it on the juju-bred horse, making it glow with health and radiate vigor. After putting everything in order, he also tidied up the courtyard house. Whether it was the cobwebs above or the dust at the base of the walls, he swept everything until they were clean. He picked up and put away anything that needed it. Finally, he cupped his hands and bid farewell toward the direction of the bamboo grove. I've disturbed you a lot for half a year. I also often listened to your singing to pass the time. Although I enjoyed it, thinking it over carefully, it was indeed rude. Upon leaving, I should bid farewell and apologize. I hope you resolve your obsession soon or that your husband will return soon. It was daytime, so naturally there was no response from the direction of the bamboo grove. Instead, it was the Calico cat who raised her head to look at him. Should I say something? No need. Oh. A man called his horse and walked out the door, followed by a cat. Constable Luo stood outside at the alley's entrance dressed in black clothes. I'm here to see you off, mister. That's considerate of you. Before he left the city, Magistrate Liu, along with Prefect Yu, hurried over. Prefect Yu said, had I known earlier you were leaving today, I would have hosted a farewell banquet yesterday. Please forgive me. You're too kind. In any case, I have not been attentive enough. I rushed here in a hurry today. Fortunately, I have not missed you. I have just bought you some snacks that keep well on the way here so you can eat them on the road when hungry, as well as a wool blanket and a cloak for cold nights. Please accept them. Songyu glanced at Prefect Yu a few times. Thank you, Prefect Yu. Where are you heading? I don't know yet, I'm just going east. How long will this journey be? 20 years. Prefect Yu was momentarily stunned. Constable Luo and Magistrate Liu, who were standing behind him, were also taken aback. 20 years. How many 20 years does one have in a lifetime? They have only heard of people striving for fame and fortune in 20 years. Some used 20 years to wallow in degeneration, but they had never heard of anyone traveling the world for 20 years. 20 years of countless trials and hardships, who can predict them? 20 years later, no one knows if they will still stand here or even be alive. Even Constable Luo, who was the youngest, was actually already over age 30. He would be over 50 20 years later. If not in the grave, he would already be old and gray-haired. Yet when Mr. Song mentioned it, his tone was indifferent, as if he felt it was trivial and normal. He totally treated 20 years as if it was nothing. Prefect Yu felt mixed emotions for a moment. Once they parted now, they would probably not meet again in this lifetime. Take care. Thank you, gentlemen. Both sides bowed deeply. And Song Yu led his horse away, walking further and further away. A few left behind watched, feeling strange inside. Calling Mr. Song's deeds in Yidu these past 6 months, whether eradicating the fog spirit on Jinyang Road, burning the evil monk in front of the Buddha's hall, helping to catch the conjure thief at the temple fair, striking people down with lightning from across half the city yet, he did not care about fame and wealth, living a free and unconstrained life. They had seen capable people with cultivation skills before like Master Guangheng, but they had never seen a master like Mr. Song. Living immortal in stories would probably be like this. Such an immortal should be recorded in books. / asterisk. The morning clouds hung heavy, and the dew on the road had not yet dried. One man, one cat, and one horse went out of the city gates. The horse had no reins, and Song Yu didn't need them either. He walked ahead, the horse followed silently, and beside it the cat also followed obediently. Onlookers found it miraculous. The road ahead was filled with countless mountains and rivers, with unpredictable weather. Although the road was long and difficult, walking would eventually lead to the destination. Song Yu just maintained a calm heart and moved forward step by step. A yellow dirt road outside the city stretched to the horizon. Farmland and cottages lined the road. The scenery was delicate and pretty. The shallowly rooted grass on the road was yellowed, and the dew evaporated as the sun appeared. The thick dust on the ground was stirred up by each step in tiny clouds. Song Yu enjoyed this feeling very much because it made every step more visually striking, and also clearer and more real. Lady Calico continued darting ahead and behind, sniffing here and there, occasionally showing a puzzled expression. We seem to have been here before. You are clever. Why are we going back again? Only this short section is repeated. Where are we going? Going east. Which way is east? Where the sun rises in the morning. Why go there? The calico cat kept up with him with her small, quick steps. She tilted her head and looked up at him. Are you going to find out where the sun rises? No. Then what are you looking for? To find unsurpassably wonderful landscapes, places where the people are simple and honest, legendary immortals, creatures from stories, and to go and see all the marvelous and wonderful places in this world. The little cat tilted her head, looking at him and thinking for a long time before she understood. There are immortals in temples. I also used to be an immortal. Song Yu shook his head with a smile. They're just ghosts who are officials. Then what is an immortal to you? Hard to say. You don't know either. I have never seen one. Then why are you looking for them? Precisely because I have never seen them. This world might not be as developed as his previous one, but it was also full of wonders. Even though he had spent the first half of his life in a Taoist temple, he had already seen some of them. He believed there was more, so he wished to go and see more marvelous and unsurpassably wonderful landscapes as well as more mysterious and interesting things. The journey this time was undoubtedly much more comfortable than before. First, he had the company of Lady Calico. Second, he was well prepared. Third, he now had a horse, so at least he no longer needed to carry the traveling bags on his back. He went forward empty-handed, thus he had more mental and physical energy to enjoy every step. By afternoon, they were on Jinyang Road again. Ancient trees lined the old road, providing shade and shelter from the rain. Weather happened to be good that day. Walking along a tree-shaded path like this, the sunlight filtered through and created spots of light and shadow. As they walked slowly on the stone slabs, the light and darkness shifted before their eyes. In one moment they were enveloped in shadow, and in the next, sunlight fell on them. The clopping of horse hooves entered their ears. They felt calm in their hearts. They didn't worry about the 1,000-li journey or fear the sound of wind and rain. The feeling was truly beautiful. Not far ahead, they saw a tea stall with many people. Although this was still Jinyang Road, they had passed Yidu, and this was no longer the section they had walked before. This tea stall was new to them. Just in time, as they were somewhat tired. Song Yu led the horse over and stopped in front of the tea stall. A bowl of tea, he added. Good tea. The tea stall owner was a very kindly-looking hunchbacked old man. He immediately came over to serve him. Young mister, would you like some food as well? We could also provide some cheap fodder for your horse. No need. Song Yu had brought steamed pancakes and steamed buns with him when he left. He just needed a bowl of hot tea to wash them down with. As for the horse, though it seemed to be carrying many items, actually none of them were heavy. It had not been heavily burdened at all on the journey. Instead, it had walked leisurely, grazing on wild grass at the sides of the road along the way. It wasn't hungry at all at that moment. Oh, the old man discovered the horse unexpectedly had no reins when he was trying to tie up the horse for Xianxia. "Young mister, your horse." "The horse is smart, no need for reins." "Aren't you afraid it will get lost?" "No." The old stall owner was very amazed, but went to fetch tea. A steaming teapot filled the bowl to the brim. The jianghu people and merchants beside him repeatedly cast glances at Xianxia. This was merely a somewhat unusual affair, but with Xianxia dressed in his Taoist robe, it immediately seemed to take on a more mysterious significance. Even the proud and unruly jianghu people restrained their contemptuous gazes. However, when they saw Xianxia pry open the steamed bun, take out the meat filling to feed the cat, and eat only the outer dough himself, they couldn't help but be even more amazed. They started whispering and discussing nonstop among themselves. Neither he nor the cat paid them any mind. The horse just stood quietly in front of the stall, not running about despite not being tied up. Seeing some tender grass shoots at the side that it fancied, it just took a few steps away and lowered its head to nibble slowly without wandering far. During this period, people continuously settled their bills and left. Whenever a traveler came from the left and went towards the right, the old stall owner would approach them, bow and ask where they were heading and if they could help deliver a letter. However, after asking many people, most declined. In this era, long distances and high mountains made letter delivery difficult. Once one left the official road, there were demons, ghosts, as well as mountain bandits, making letter delivery even more challenging. On Jinyang Road, besides officials, most were traveling merchants or jianghu people. Merchants either valued their reputation or profits. Trustworthy merchants feared they couldn't deliver and didn't dare to agree easily. Profit-driven ones wanted more money. After asking for a long time, only one merchant agreed, but there was no guarantee the letter would arrive safely. Xianxia raised the bowl and drank the last sip of tea. He even paused for a moment with the bowl raised, waiting for the tea clinging to the bowl's sides to trickle down. He noted that the more expensive tea on this official road had more ingredients and was more filling. Moreover, it was flavorful, with salt, sugar, and even plums added. A large bowl filled to the brim with 2 steamed buns added unexpectedly made him feel full. "The bill, please." 10 wen. It was as expensive as a bowl of wonton. However, it was normal. In his previous world, a cup of milk tea was somewhat more expensive than a bowl of wonton. The hunchbacked old man watched Xianxia count the money, smiling. "May I ask where you are heading, young mister?" "I'm going east." "Will you pass through Suzhou, Long Commandery?" Xianxia counted out 10 wen but didn't answer immediately. He smiled and asked, "Do you wish to send a letter?" Actually, he had only heard of Suzhou, which was east of Yizhou. He had to pass through Suzhou if he headed east, but he had never heard of Long Commandery. "Yes, if you're going to Long Commandery and it's on the way, I'd like to ask you to deliver a letter for me." The old stall owner added quickly, "Don't worry, I won't let you deliver it for nothing." "What kind of letter?" "Are you really going to Long Commandery?" "I am an idle wanderer in the mountain wilderness who is traveling the world, and I don't know where I will go. I just know I'm going east and will pass through Suzhou. If you have urgent business, I don't mind making a trip to Long Commandery." "I'll be honest, we were poor in the past, so my son followed his second uncle to Suzhou, Long Commandery, to do business. Later, he remained there. It's far, and there are mountain bandits once you leave the official road. He hasn't returned for 2 years. A few days ago, my wife missed him so much that she couldn't sleep, and the day before yesterday she became bedridden with illness. I've asked officials passing by to help me write a few letters and wish to ask people to deliver them in order to ask him to come back." "I see." Mountains and rivers could block messages, but should not block familial love between mother and child. Xianxia didn't think much about it and smiled calmly. "Then I'll deliver the letter for you and use it as an opportunity to see Long Commandery scenery." "Thank you." The old man was instantly deeply grateful, bowing low. It was too much, and Xianxia quickly helped him up. "No need for such ceremony. I wander the 4 seas anyway and should thank you for pointing the way on my behalf." Chapter 40. I wish to share my heart with you. The old man waved Xianxia's tea bill and also gave him 100 wen as a fee for delivering the letter. He promised that his son would give another 200 wen upon receipt. He would be able to earn a total of 300 wen. Usually, payment for delivering a letter was divided into 2 parts like this. The letter itself was rolled up and placed inside a small bamboo tube, which Song Yu casually stuck into his bedding bag. He had already told the old man that he would be walking slowly and taking his time to enjoy the scenery, so he mustn't complain if the delivery was delayed. Then Song Yu led his horse and set off again. Looking back, he saw the old man bowing and asking a group of jianghu people again, seemingly still having letters to be delivered. This was quite normal. In this era, asking someone to deliver a letter inevitably meant more than one copy. If it was an important letter, delivering multiple copies was normal in case the letter was not delivered or arrived late. Suzhou, Long Commandery, North Lingbo County, Ganzhou Alley, Chenhan. Song Yu muttered to himself. He didn't really need to remember it, as it was already written on the bamboo tube. The address seemed easy enough to find. However, Suzhou was still several hundred li away. According to the old man, Lingbo County in Long Commandery was quite remote within Suzhou, with difficult roads. No wonder so many traveling merchants and jianghu people refused to go there or to accept the task. Fortunately, this Chen Han at least lived within the county town. There were no maps or navigation systems in this era. If the delivery address is rather remote, from a prefecture to a commandery, and then to a county, the delivery person might find it difficult to distinguish directions even upon reaching the county. They would need to patiently ask for directions, and then navigate the complicated small roads. Along the way, it would be hard to say how much effort and time would be spent, and how many wrong turns would be taken. This was why even a thin letter to a family member was worth a fortune. Thinking it over, that day was already the 5th day of the new year. Based on past years, the Taoist priests from Fuking Temple were probably already on their way to Hidden Dragon Temple. If they had left early, his master might have already seen his letter. He wondered what she would think upon reading it. That old lady Taoist priest was lazy and fond of sleeping. With him gone, she would probably have gone hungry quite often. Taoist priest, what are you thinking about? The Calico cat, who had run ahead, stopped and looked back at him. Song Yu smiled and slowly caught up. The juju-bred horse continued to follow him silently. Thus, he continued to cross mountains and rivers, traveling when the sun rose and stopping at dusk. Occasionally, he traveled at double speed by night if he felt like it. If he got lazy, he found a comfortable spot to take an afternoon nap in the sun. The Taoist kept a calm heart and his steps were always steady. The horse was well-behaved, always silent and reliable. The Calico cat was lively, constantly darting back and forth around the man and horse. When passing through forests, she became human. When passing by rivers, she became a cat. When lying down together with Song Yu during afternoon naps, she was a cat. She became human again when riding on the horse's back. She would laugh heartily, slap the horse and urged it to run faster. She was always transforming like this. Days passed, perhaps 7 or 8 days. A green mountain appeared dark in the distance. It had a flat ridge which met the clouds, forming a clear line dividing the green and the white. On this gently curved mountain ridge, one could see a man and a horse slowly walking along this ridge from afar. From this angle, they looked as if they were walking in the sky, their origin and destination unknown. For a moment, it seemed as if this world contained only this man and his horse. In reality, this wasn't an official road, but a mountain peak. The official road lay further down the mountainside. Song Yu had whimsically decided to climb up. He couldn't find a road at first and wasted much effort. The Calico cat didn't quite understand. She thought that the road below was fine, with trees to climb, bugs to catch, and even many bird nests in the trees. Not to mention that climbing this mountain took a lot of effort, the top was also much more barren than the mountainside. There wasn't as much fun here, and there were also many grasses taller than her, making it extremely difficult to walk. Climbing back down would also be troublesome. The Calico cat had many questions and asked incessantly why they had to climb. However, she was just a cat. Since she was following this Taoist priest on his travels, she had no choice but to go along. Another day ended, and it was sunset again. The Calico cat, having transformed into human form for a while, developed by herself the ability to exhale magical breath. She could exhale black smoke to obscure vision, or white smoke to induce sleep. These were common abilities among demons. However, as she always followed Song Yu, she mostly used her ability to exhale black smoke only when changing clothes during transformation. Thus, she once again used the black smoke to transform into human form and diligently collected a lot of firewood. The nights were cold, and they had to warm themselves by a fire. Warming themselves by the fire was most comfortable. Song Yu sat cross-legged facing west, motionless. He wasn't meditating on the spiritual resonance of the landscape, just quietly watching the sunset. Admiring the setting sun, and then the twilight glow, he only turned around when the sky was dark. He saw that Lady Calico had piled up a stack of firewood behind him. His bedding bag had been placed on the withered grass on the ground. The juju-bred horse was seemingly very much at ease. It lay on the ground, chewing on the dry grass nearby while glancing at the little girl from the sides of its eyes. The little girl squatted by the firewood pile, leaning in very closely. Huff, huff, cough, cough, huff. Xianxia saw that she was trying to use the fire-spitting technique he taught her, attempting to start the fire herself. However, despite all her efforts, she only produced a few wisps of gray-white smoke, sometimes even choking herself into coughing. You lack a bit of skill, Xianxia said softly. However, he paused slightly before narrowing his eyes and adding with a smile, but you're very close. If you try harder with your next breath, you will be sure to succeed. The little girl lifted her head and glanced at him, completely believing his words. Thus she set her mind to it, and took another deep breath again until her chest was puffed up. Huff. Yellow flame came out of her mouth. However, it was just ordinary fire with no magical properties. She had aimed at the firewood, but it merely singed the firewood slightly. It was not sufficient to burn a person, let alone igniting the firewood. Congratulations, Xianxia said to the little girl with a smile. You are truly gifted, learning the fire-spitting technique in just a few months. The little girl ignored him, focusing on exhaling smoke. The gray-white smoke was interspersed with many sparks. After a while, she looked back in disappointment. It won't burn. It's already very impressive. How long did it take you to learn? Silence. Why don't you answer? Since you can produce a flame, it shows you are already on the right path. With more practice and understanding in the future, it will come. Remember, each time you perform the technique, you must believe firmly in its success. Then how long did it take you to learn? Silence. How long did it take you to learn? 2 days, Xianxia answered while pointing at the firewood. Boom. The firewood immediately ignited. The little girl sat down heavily on the ground, staring blankly at the fire in front of her, not saying a word. Xianxia toasted 2 steamed pancakes over the fire, which were similar to mantu in his previous world. However, what was called mantu here actually had fillings. Similar to what his previous world commonly called baozi, he originally planned to roast a bit of dried meat for Lady Calico, but in the end she said she didn't plan to eat yet, and didn't want to eat dried meat either. She said there were mice on the mountain, and she would go and catch mice once they came out at night. This little cat ate better than he did. Although it was early spring and still cold, she already had no trouble finding food. She caught bugs by the roadside, birds by day, and mice at night. All were her routine fare. If the season was right, she might even have settled Xianxu's meals along the way. After dinner, the cold deepened. Xianxia found a flat spot, burned it with fire, laid out the felt blanket given by Prefect Yu, and lay down covering himself with another blanket. Lady Calico lay with her beloved horse. Lying down and looking up, the sky was full of stars. So dense it seemed the sky couldn't contain them, and they hung down to the earth along the curtain of night. Lady Calico, look at the sky. I am looking at the sky. The sky is full of stars. I see them. Lady Calico, did you know? Each star in the sky is a world like ours. Only some are inhabited and some are not. Perhaps as we gaze at the stars, someone up there is raising their head and gazing in our direction. Are there cats in places with people? Most likely. What about places without people? Maybe, Xianxia answered softly, feeling increasingly calm. Lady Calico had a kind of unique perspective different from humans. Every time he talked to her, her replies or questions always felt very wonderful and relaxing to him. Xianxia asked softly, do you think the stars are beautiful? Beautiful? There are many trees further down the mountain. You won't be able to see them from there. Here you can. That's why we climbed up here. Yes, Lady Calico gazed up, entranced by the stars. She felt the stars were really beautiful, sparkling and bright. She couldn't resist wanting to reach out and grab them. And she really did extend her hand, waving and beckoning in the air in front of her. If climbing up here was for seeing the stars, it seemed worthwhile despite the hard effort and not being able to climb trees to catch birds. Just then, she heard the Taoist priest's voice again. Lady Calico. Yes, Lady Calico seemed to sense something. She suddenly put her hand down and turned her head. The Taoist priest inexplicably let out a long sigh. I used to dislike this world. Why? For many reasons. Why? This world is primitive and backward. There are no brightly lit cities, no convenient transportation, no exciting internet, no way to stay indoors and know what's going on in the world. You can't find culinary delicacies from most places in just one city, and the meals are mostly unpalatable. The cities smell foul during the day, filled with excrement everywhere. Most passers-by's clothes are ragged and dirty. At night, if you don't have money to light candles or lamps, it's pitch dark. Even if you lit candles or lamps, the light is tiny and dim in the darkness. This world is also the same, dark and dreary. Besides the gods, ghosts, magic, and natural scenery, I don't know what exciting things it has to offer. It's not dark at night. You can even catch mice for fun. Look, even delivering a letter is so difficult. Delivering a letter has always been hard. And this world is strange and ignorant. When I first arrived, I knew no one. People are ignorant. Even the thinking of scholars and wise men is constrained by the times. The vast majority of people either enjoy trampling on others or are accustomed to being trampled on, or both. Many times, I actually don't want to talk to them at all. Xianxia lay gazing at the stars, yet his expression did not appear arrogant but calm as always. Lady Calico said honestly this time, "I don't understand." Xianxia just smiled when he heard. That was precisely why he had told her. At some point, Lady Calico had turned back into a cat. She crawled over from Xiangxia's side and climbed over his body, her steps making his upper body itch. Then she ran to the other side and touched his face with her little paws. The paws were ice cold and felt muddy and sandy. "Taoist priest, you're unhappy." "Not really." "Then what is it?" "I just have some feelings." "Then tell me." Do the stars find us beautiful too?" "Maybe." Lady Calico was healing him. His eyes couldn't take in the sky full of stars. The fire by his side continued to burn and crackle. The juju-bred horse was lying down and chewing grass nearby. The chewing sound was unexpectedly very soothing. The sound of the wind and whispers calmed his heart. His master had said before that his mild and calm appearance hid a deep arrogance towards the entire world. Actually, it was unavoidable. Xianxia never denied it and tried hard to restrain himself. However, that was in the past. After coming to this world and as time passed, he also gradually figured things out. Since it is already destined to be difficult for him to return in this life, he tried hard to integrate into this place, trying hard to open up his heart to accept this world. He tried hard to broaden his vision to see and experience this world's unique beauty. If he didn't know what exciting things it had to offer, then he would go find them. If he couldn't think of anything beautiful about it, then he would go and see. Descending the mountain to travel the world in this manner, crossing countless mountains and rivers, experiencing the affairs of the world and human relationships. There was no other reason. He only hoped that this life could be more exciting and more interesting, in order not to waste this life. Fortunately, he had just begun his journey, but he had already gained a lot. Chapter 41. Inviting the Mountain Lord to return to the mountain. Is that the Shuzhou boundary up ahead? How do you know? There is a boundary stone. A boundary stone. The Calico cat peered ahead and then ran toward the visible end of the stone slab road. She stopped in front of the stone, looked it up and down, and then ran back, saying, "There's indeed a stone." Xianxia glanced at the cat and then looked ahead. "Next time we stop for a rest somewhere and have free time, I'll teach you how to read." "Why should I learn to read?" "You need to be literate to read books." "Why read books?" "Books are the stepping stones for human progress." "What about cats?" "Books are also the stepping stones for cat progress." "Why?" "Because they contain the wisdom of the previous generations." "What wisdom?" "If you don't wish to learn, forget it." Xiangxia's expression remained calm. As he walked closer, he could see the characters on the stone clearly. Side facing him had the 3 large characters for Yizhou Jai, Yizhou boundary, carved, with smaller characters on the left and right indicating the commandery and county boundaries as well as the year the stone was erected. Once they passed this boundary stone, the other side would be carved with Suzhou Jai, Shuzhou boundary, with similar inscriptions on the left and right. It had been erected at the founding of the current dynasty. In the spring of the 2nd year of Ming, Xianxia arrived in Shuzhou. Oh, and also Lady Calico and the juju-bred horse. Xianxia thought it was worth commemorating. However, there was no need to linger here. They took a short break, ate some dry rations, drank some water, and then continued on their way. "We don't have much food left." "There's food everywhere." "I don't have much food left." "I will catch bugs for you to eat." "I don't eat bugs." "They're very tasty." "No need." "Then I'll catch mice for you." "I appreciate your kindness." "Then I'll catch small birds for you." "We should find a village or town and see if we can buy some portable rations." Xianxia gazed into the distance. All he could see were blue skies and yellow meadows with undulating mountains. There was no sign of a village, only a gray-white fog that could be either smoke or mist on the horizon. "We also need to ask for directions to Long Commandery." "That old man has told you how to get there." "He wasn't very clear. We still need to find someone to ask." "You're not very smart." "You are smart. Tell me, how do we get there?" "I will follow you." After walking a bit further, they finally saw a village that seemed to be quite bustling. There was a stone by the roadside with the 3 characters for Liu Jiakun, Liu Family Village. The village was backed by remote mountains. Mountain springs converged to form a stream that meandered through it with 1,000 ching of fertile fields on its banks. It was a good place, and it wasn't far from the main road too, so it was no wonder it was thriving. Songyu left the main road and led his horse forward. As they approached the village, they saw a group of men carrying knives and sticks walk out and rush toward the main road outside. Seeing Songyu and his party, they couldn't help stopping. An old man came forward, scrutinized Songyu for a moment, and then said, somewhat anxiously, "Are you heading toward our village, young mister?" "I am Songyu, a wandering hermit. I'm passing through and wanted to buy some portable dry rations from your village since I have just finished my dry rations. Also, I wanted to ask for directions." Songyu asked curiously as he bowed to them. "May I ask why you are rushing out carrying knives and sticks?" Young mister, you'd better not go in for now," the old man said, holding a sickle. "Our village has been troubled by a tiger from the mountains behind these past few days. It's still in the village. We're on our way to the county to invite people over to kill it. It's not that our Liu family village doesn't welcome guests. If you'd come some days earlier or later, I could have asked our master to give you some food and silver money. If it weren't for this affair, we'd be celebrating our master's birthday the day after tomorrow, and we'd definitely invite you to stay and celebrate with us for a few days. But it's impossible now." "Oh, is it a mountain tiger turned demon?" "It hasn't become a demon, but it's very cunning. It runs away when there are many people," the old man said. "Young mister, if you're heading the same way, come with us. It's only half a day to the county." "Has the mountain tiger eaten any humans?" "Not yet, it's just been eating livestock." Even though it was early spring, the old man was already sweating profusely. "Young mister, you better not go in for your own safety. Even with so many people, we can't deal with it. We need to go to the county to report it to the authorities to get professional help." "Having heard what you said, I could try driving it back to the mountains, saving all of you the effort and expense." How would you drive it away?" "I have some modest Taoist cultivation skills." The old man immediately turned to exchange dismayed glances with the men behind him. "Are you certain you can do it, mister?" "I can try." "How can we help you?" "Just lead me to it." "How much will you charge, mister?" "I'm doing it for free. Just give me some portable rations." The group looked at one another in dismay again. "All right." Even though they were just leading the way, the old man didn't dare to take it lightly. He still brought everyone along, holding their knives and sticks tightly, and nervously led the way. As they walked, he explained to Songyu. Although Liu family village was next to remote mountains, savage beasts in the mountains usually avoided humans and rarely came down. Instead, it was often wild boars who came down and damaged crops. Perhaps because it was early spring with many animals in the mountains still hibernating, this fierce tiger couldn't catch any prey temporarily. Somehow, it discovered the village below the mountain and started visiting. It hadn't hurt anyone yet, just killed and ate some chickens, ducks, pigs, and sheep. The villagers were terrified. A rich and influential family took the lead and organized a group of strong young men to set traps, but nothing worked. Finally, they decided to go to the county to report to the authorities for help that day. As they walked over, the door of every house was tightly shut. The group circled around and stopped outside a house in the village. Someone pointed Songyu to the front. He whispered very softly, "It's there." Songyu looked in the direction he pointed and saw a patch of striped yellow-black fur showing in a pen. Looking carefully, he saw it was moving slightly. Just this patch of fur already revealed the size of the creature. "Everyone, please step back some more and keep further away. Don't startle it." Upon hearing this, the villagers hurriedly retreated. Songyu looked down at the cat beside him. "Lady Calico, do you want to come too?" "Yes, I want to go. But that's a tiger." "I'm not afraid." "Don't stutter." "You heard wrong." "Then let's go." Songyu stepped forward, his pace calm as always. As his gaze gradually moved past the foot of the wall, the striped body of the large tiger also appeared before Songyu's eyes. He had seen tigers in the back of Yinyang Mountain before, even tiger demons who had acquired cultivation skills. The tigers in Yizhu were average in size. The tiger in front of him seemed to be of the same breed, but it was somewhat larger. Its fur looked like fine new silk, shining in the sunlight. Even the most exquisitely crafted textile could not match it. The tiger was crouching on the ground and eating a pig, half of which had already been devoured. Meanwhile, the fierce tiger had noticed him too and immediately stopped eating. It turned its head and stared at him intently. Its mouth was full of fresh blood, and its eyes were terrifying. It licked its mouth with its tongue, revealing the barbs on its tongue as well as canine teeth longer than fingers. If more people had come, it would have run away by now. Seeing only one person and a small cat, its eyes remained wary. It just looked them up and down. Occasionally, its gaze flickered, as if it was thinking deeply. There was a calmness amidst its wariness. This showed it was very smart. Xianxia often saw a similar expression on Lady Calico's face. Even when she was in cat form, he could see her extraordinary nature at a glance through the contemplation in her eyes. Thus, while the fierce mountain tiger was alertly investigating, and the villagers behind were tense and worried, Xianxia just raised his hands and bowed calmly. "Greetings, Mountain Lord." "Roar!" The fierce tiger was startled by his action, immediately standing up and continuing to stare at him. The villagers behind were also taken aback. The calico cat was a few steps away from him, staring wide-eyed at the giant beast, but fortunately not trembling. They heard the young Taoist's voice. "Mountain Lord, there's no need for alarm. My name is Xianxia, and my style name is Minglai. I'm a hermit from Linquin County in Yizhu. I'm traveling and happened to pass through here, wanting to buy some food. I unintentionally ran into the villagers going out to seek help. I heard you had a conflict with them, so I came specially to mediate." The wild mountain tiger didn't understand human speech. However, after listening to Xianxia, the wariness in its eyes gradually subsided for some reason, turning into contemplation, then puzzlement. The villagers behind were almost dumbfounded. From their angle, they couldn't see the fierce tiger in the pig pen, only the young Taoist bowing and speaking to it. For a moment, they felt it was astonishing, absurd, and terrifying. The tiger hadn't become a demon, so how could it understand human language? And what sense was there in talking to a tiger? "I see that behind this village, the great mountains stretch for 1,000 li. Mountain Lord, why don't you hunt in the mountains and enjoy your freedom, instead of coming down to hunt livestock?" "Roar!" The tiger's roar scared the villagers half to death. They feared that in the next second, the tiger behind the wall would rush out and pounce on the Taoist. But the Taoist just shook his head and said, "This is not a good idea." Xianxia glanced down at the half-eaten pig below its body. The pigs here were mostly little black pigs, which were not very big. With the tiger's appetite, it could probably eat a whole pig in 2 meals. Even the richest village couldn't sustain it. "Mountain Lord, your appetite is very large. This village cannot support you. Besides, people need to live too." Xianxia shook his head. "When I arrived earlier, the farmers in this village were already preparing to go to the county and invite people to hunt you. No matter how powerful you are, in the end you can't win against humans." The fierce tiger stared at him but was silent. "I see you have already gained some wisdom. In the future, you might even become enlightened and become a demon. You've already eaten a lot of livestock now. It's better to go back early and not bring trouble upon yourself." Xianxia said, "In the future, don't cross the boundary again. The mountains are your hunting grounds, but below these mountains, especially where the roads lead, is the world of humans." The light in the fierce tiger's eyes flickered, and it lapsed into contemplation. It shifted its gaze, sometimes looking at Xianxia, sometimes at the cat behind him, and sometimes at the half-eaten pig below its body. After a while, it actually released its grip on the pig and took a few steps to the side. Only then did it bow its head to Xianxia in thanks. Xianxia also quickly returned the bow. Then, to the astonishment of the villagers, the vicious tiger actually crossed the small village path and ran all the way up into the mountains. At the time they came to their senses, the young Taoist priest they had met on the road by chance had already reached them. "In the future, it won't come down the mountain again." "Thank you, mister," was the old man who reacted first. He bowed to Xianxia and hurriedly said, "Mister, please come this way. I must report to our master first. His birthday celebration was supposed to be held 2 days later, but we didn't know if it could be celebrated on time because of this tiger causing trouble. Now that you've driven it away, you're our Liu family village's honored guest. Please stay in the village for a few days so we can entertain you properly." "No need, just give me some portable rations." "Mister, please don't decline. If we let you go like this, our master will surely blame us," the old man said. "Please don't worry, mister. We will definitely entertain you with the best food and drink. If the birthday celebration goes smoothly in 2 days, there will even be an opera troupe performing. It will be very lively." Xianxia really couldn't decline. Chapter 42. Who says it isn't beautiful because it's backward? "Mister, you are truly a master. Today has been an eye-opener for us. Truly immortal methods." All the way, everyone surrounded Xianxia, both awestruck and admiring, treating him just like a master traveling the world. A large group made their way to the old man's master's residence. It was the largest house in the village. Even just standing outside the courtyard, looking at the white walls and eave corners as well as the bamboo and plums showing through, It was evident that a refined family definitely lived here. Passing the stone lions and entering the vermilion door, the interior was far beyond what a typical wealthy mountain village family could possess. As expected, while waiting for the old man to go inside to report and explain the situation, someone beside Song Yu informed him that this household belonged to a former official surnamed Liu. After reaching old age, he returned to his hometown to retire here. The fertile fields he had seen on the road previously mostly belonged to this old official, Mr. Liu. In 2 days, it would be old official Liu's 70th birthday. Reaching 70 had always been rare since ancient times. Old official Liu had been back in the village for a long time. Though he didn't plan to hold a big celebration or invite any guests, his younger relatives were still coming. He had even hired an opera troupe for a lively celebration. Unfortunately, this vicious tiger had come to the village a few days earlier. Initially, the villagers thought it would leave after eating its fill, so they killed pigs and sheep for it and spoke nicely to it. However, the tiger refused to leave, and old official Liu began to worry. If it was an ordinary tiger, they could organize some strong young men to drive it away. However, this cunning tiger actually engaged them in a battle of wits and courage for several days without being vanquished. Therefore, they decided to go to the county to seek help. Successfully driving the tiger away meant the birthday celebration could still proceed with difficulty. Otherwise, they would send people to inform old official Liu's younger relatives in the county not to come. Now that Song Yu had effortlessly driven away the vicious tiger, he had not only helped them immensely, but also showcased extraordinary skills. Naturally, old official Liu treated him with utmost respect, hurriedly arranging the best room for them and inviting them to lodge with him. The Juju-bred horse was led to the back courtyard to be well cared for, and he also sent someone to ask Song Yu about his preferences when it came to clothing, food, lodging, and transport. He even told him to bring his clothes to the family laundress for washing. He could be said to have been very considerate. However, since Song Yu had only persuaded the tiger to leave after all and had not killed it, the villagers still felt uneasy. That evening, old official Liu arranged a lavish banquet, and the table was laden with fish and meat. Despite being so frail that he had trouble walking steadily, old official Liu personally poured wine for Song Yu. "Mister, you are indeed a master. I am merely a hermit cultivator, unworthy of such praise." "Where did you cultivate, mister?" "Hidden Dragon Temple on Yinyang Mountain, Linquan County, Yizhu." "It must be a famous abode on a celestial mountain," old official Liu remarked. "I have aspired toward the immortal Tao for many years. I don't know how you drove away that fierce tiger. What wonderful method did you use?" "It was just a petty trick, not worth mentioning." Old official Liu exchanged a few looks with those sitting beside him, looking awkward. Then he praised Song Yu again. "You managed to persuade the tiger to leave with just a few words, truly an immortal method. It's just that tiger has returned to the mountain forest. Once you leave in a few days, we will be on tenterhooks again." As he said this, old official Liu immediately smiled. "It's not that we doubt your immortal methods, but it's a beast after all, and it's hard to change its inherent nature." "Mr. Liu, please don't worry. I have gotten it to understand. It won't return again." Song Yu also knew clearly that they were trying their best to keep him there mostly because for that reason. However, the tiger hadn't harmed anyone, just eaten some livestock. Seeing it was pure, with no black fowl chi or ghosts of devoured victims following it, it had never harmed a person. Moreover, it had gained some wisdom and was close to enlightenment. The heavens value life, so he was also willing to be lenient. All living things had spirits, and beasts were stupid. Actually, one needed to be clever to break rules and be untrustworthy. Thus, animals followed rules better than humans. Once an animal understood a rule and knew that something is forbidden, it rarely broke the rule again. Moreover, this spell to summon beasts and birds had its own mysteries. Having made an agreement with the mountain tiger, Song Yu would no longer seek it or harm it. In return, the tiger would also not break its vow and descend the mountain. It was both an agreement and a Taoist art. It was both its nature and a mysterious principle. Only with the two combined did Song Yu dare to guarantee everyone that the tiger would never descend the mountain again. Seeing Song Yu so assured, old official Liu exchanged looks with those beside him again. But he couldn't say any more and had no choice but to believe him. "Thank you truly, mister. It was nothing. Please enjoy the food." When he returned to his room at night, old official Liu even sent someone to bring a few candles over. Candlelight was somewhat brighter than oil lamps. As Song Yu lit the candle, he was even somewhat sentimental. To be honest, it was his first time lighting a candle of his own volition despite his age. Candles were occasionally lit at the temple, but they were lit by worshippers who came to offer incense to the gods. The temple's master and disciple weren't devout, so naturally they wouldn't normally buy candles to light them for the gods. Candles were very expensive. Song Yu only bought lamp oil when he was in Yidu. One caddy cost less than 100 wen, but a single candle cost 3 to 400 wen. To keep a candle burning all night, you'd need at least 2 or 3. Old official Liu was indeed generous. After washing up, Song Yu lay down on the bed. He covered himself with the blanket and glanced around on a whim. He noticed the Calico cat lying close beside the window, looking outside into the night. How could a human guess a cat's thoughts? After a while, she turned her head and stared at Song Yu, who was in bed. She asked in a clear voice, "Are tigers always that big?" "You're thinking about the tiger from today." "Yes." "Was it your first time seeing a tiger?" "Yes." "Tigers do grow very large." "Are they all that big?" "Some are big, some are small." "Was today's tiger considered big?" "Not the biggest." "Not the biggest, huh? Are you feeling inferior again?" The cat beside the window didn't answer, only continued to ask, "Can cats grow that big?" "I'm afraid not." "What about cats who have become demons?" "Probably not either." "Oh. Actually, Lady Calico is more impressive." "Why?" "You can talk, spit fire, and take human form. That mountain tiger is only strong due to natural advantages." Song Yu looked at the cat. "You are still superior." "I'm very clever." "Absolutely." The cat then jumped back from the window, no longer pondering. She symbolically lay down at a corner of the bed's foot as always. If nothing unexpected happened, she would be under the blanket by tomorrow morning. "Go to sleep." Song Yu waved his hand, extinguishing the candle. Early next morning, old official Liu sent someone to invite him to breakfast and then for a stroll outside, respectfully chatting with him. Old official Liu, being old after all, saw that he had skills and turned to him in desperation, hoping that he could offer some method or elixirs for longevity, but Song Yu couldn't help. One more day later was old official Liu's birthday. Old official Liu had invited all the farming households in the village, and some of his younger relatives had also returned from outside the village. He had also hired an opera troupe to play music, sing, and dance, making it very lively. The village had just been troubled by the tiger a few days ago, and people still felt somewhat uneasy in their hearts despite old official Liu's repeated reassurances. However, once the people gathered in large numbers, they no longer feared anything. Song Yu was invited to be seated at the main table, surrounded by respected elders. The table was laden with fish and meat that people rarely got to eat normally, and no lack of mountain delicacies and wild game. The cook was unusually meticulous, with every dish prepared methodically and at least looking like a proper dish. It must be noted that in an era when iron pots had just begun to be widely used, having such a variety of dishes at a village banquet was quite rare. Song Yu very quickly also discovered that dining here was very interesting. Everyone was overly cordial, thus you had to protect your bowl while you were eating. Female cooks carrying rice basins wandered everywhere behind, and if you weren't careful, a large scoop of rice would be dumped into your bowl. Sometimes, two cooks would even approach from both sides, making it impossible to avoid. Song Yu found it interesting and watched closely. He very soon realized this was actually a symbol of the host's cordial generosity. In this era, white rice was a luxury for most. Being able to provide an unlimited supply of white rice, even to the point of making you full, not only shows the host's generosity, but also demonstrates their wealth and capability. This show of forcibly adding rice softened the host's display of wealth, covered up the guests' poverty, and added a lot of fun, making the banquet atmosphere very pleasant. He then observed the diners. Even though these people had just started eating their first bowl of rice and definitely could finish 2 or 3 bowls, they guarded their bowls closely from the start. Tacitly engaging in a battle of wits and courage with the female cooks serving the rice, they waited until a careless mistake allowed a scoop of fragrant white rice to be added to their bowls, which then elicited a burst of laughter. It seemed like cooperation, yet also like playful teasing. It also seemed like a form of implicit culture. Song Yu gradually lapsed into deep contemplation. In his contemplation, he didn't notice a cook sneaking up behind him. In his panic, he imitated the people beside him, moving his bowl from right to left in order to dodge the rice. However, he didn't realize there was another cook on the left. By the time he reacted, his half-eaten bowl of rice was already piled high again, forming a small mound. Ha 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 ha, the table erupted in laughter. Looking around, Song Yu saw everyone laughing except himself and the curious, puzzled cat standing on his lap. He saw wildly trembling beards stained by oily soup, dark, wrinkled faces, and mouths displaying unhealthy yellowed sets of teeth that had 3 or 4 teeth missing. Strangely, not only did he feel no disgust in his heart, but only simplicity and splendor. It was a purity of heart and a pure happiness. Inexplicably, he smiled too. This was the joy of this era. The unrestrained joy of this time. An old official Liu, who was at his side, leaned over, smiling, to share his tips on protecting the bowl. His heart was clear, and he just bowed his head and inclined his ear to listen attentively. Only the Calico cat remained puzzled. \\\\*. That night, the opera troupe performed. The stage was the ancestral temple's altar, fully adorned with lanterns on the sides. It was even more lively than during the day. The troupe sang all night, and the villagers also listened all night. Children ran everywhere, shouting and pursuing the simplest joy in this night without neon lights. Xianxia sat below and listened all night too. Why was it livelier than during the day? It was because the daytime birthday banquet was only for the farming households in the village, but even people from distant places had hurried over for the night's opera performance. Some had received letters saying that there would be a stage erected and an opera performance that day before the tiger had entered the village. They had calculated the days ahead of time and did not know there was a tiger here a few days ago. Others who lived nearby had heard that a fierce tiger had descended the mountain recently. However, thinking that there will be many people and that there was nothing to fear, they also hurried over before dark for the sake of the performance. Many had walked 10 li of mountain roads to come here. Some had even brought straw mats and slept on the spot when they grew tired from listening. It was no doubt an era with few pleasures. It was very difficult to find fun. Perhaps due to this, some things became extremely precious and required to be cherished carefully and not taken lightly. Chapter 43. How can Taoist classics compare to this? Mister, you're leaving already. Isn't this too hasty? Did I not treat you well enough? Mr. Liu, what are you saying? Over these past 2 days, you've treated me with great hospitality. I've been eating and living well. Yesterday in particular, your warmth as well as the villagers' simplicity and honesty were things I've rarely seen in my life. Honestly, I'd love to stay a few more days. Xianxia sincerely told old official Liu. However, I have to go to Long Commandery to deliver a family letter on behalf of an old man. I've already stayed for 2 days, and it's really inappropriate to stay longer. Prevent any misunderstanding, Xianxia showed him the letter sealed in a bamboo tube. Even so, old official Liu couldn't help but sigh, tapping his cane on the ground. However, delivering a letter was an important task involving a matter of trust, so he couldn't insist on making him stay. Instead, he just instructed someone to fetch silver money and dry rations. You've driven away the vicious tiger in our village, saving us a lot of assets. Even without your help, I would have had to spend money to hire someone from the county to do it. It's only right and proper to offer you some remuneration, Mr. Liu said, standing up with the help of his cane and offering a plate of silver money to Xianxia. Giving just some dry rations wouldn't be proper, so I prepared some silver money for you to cover your travel expenses. Xianxia looked down and saw a plate of loose silver pieces, possibly totaling 20 to 30 taels. In this era, most people would never see so much silver at once, and hiring someone from the county to drive away a tiger would cost nowhere near this much. This amount included a substantial premium for a master. But Xianxia couldn't possibly accept this money. Not only did he have an invaluable epiphany yesterday, but the good food and warm reception over the past 2 days were more than enough to repay the favor of driving away the tiger. Such is the way of the world. One side does it casually, and the other responds with generosity. No more is needed. Even if they parted now, neither side would feel any guilt in their hearts. Thus, he took only the dry rations, refusing the silver. Mr. Liu was helpless, but he felt even more impressed by this young Taoist priest, recognizing that he was unlike jianghu people who had some unusual abilities or folk masters. Therefore, he leaned on his cane and personally escorted Xianxia out the door. Mister, if you follow the main road to the right, it will take about half a day to reach the county if you have good stamina. The county is called Nianping County. If you need to rest or seek assistance in the city, feel free to go to the county yamen and look for official registrar Liu Hong, also known as Liu Yangsheng, my second son. If you prefer not to go there, you can take the water route to Long Commandery, which is easier than the land route. Just prepare enough rations and fodder. The boat would be able to carry horses as well. Water route. The water route is smoother and more comfortable. Though you may have descended the mountain to travel, you might not know that Xuzhou is full of mountains and rivers. The journey to Long Commandery is picturesque, and going downstream is quite comfortable. What's the name of the river? Liujiang River. It flows all the way to Long Commandery. Picturesque scenery. Absolutely. Others may not know, but I'm telling you, the water route is the best way to go to Long Commandery. How do I take the water route? Xianxia gradually became interested. In this era when it came to long journeys, if there was a water route, it was certainly a better option than traveling by land. He initially intended to experience the local scenery and customs more intimately, so he hadn't sought out the water route. However, hearing the old official's recommendation now, he considered taking the water route to Long Commandery. The old official then explained the details. How to find the route, where the ferry crossing was, how to board a boat, the approximate costs, and how to avoid being cheated, all explained in great detail. Farewell, Mr. Liu. Take care, mister, the old man shouted as he stood at the doorway, leaning on his cane. However, the Taoist, the cat, and the horse had already gradually walked far away. \\\\. After half a day's journey, they reached Nyingping County. Another place in his heart was illuminated. Songyu had heard a saying that for most people, the world or the realm was just a concept that was possibly very inaccurate. Even if they've seen maps or pictures or heard detailed descriptions of a place, it was still dull, flat, and unreal. Only when you visited a place and truly arrived there did it become substantial, illuminated, and turned into a three-dimensional, real place in your mind. The more places you illuminated, the more complete the world in your heart became. This was also Songyu's first long journey. The landscape here was beautiful, the waterfalls picturesque, the rice flour noodles delicious, and the temperature warmer than Yidu and Linquan County, where his Taoist temple was located. After eating the rice noodles, Songyu passed through Nyingping County, no longer following the original main road. Following old official Liu's directions, he walked about 20 li, then took a left path towards the Nyingping ferry crossing. When he reached the top of a gentle hillside, the view below suddenly opened up. Below lay a shallow river bay and a stone beach with an ancient ferry crossing. A few small boats floated on the river. Larger boats were pulled by ropes with countless short, dark barge haulers on the other end who leaned forward with all their might, looking like shadows cast by the west-slanting afternoon sun from a distance. Faint voices drifted through the air. Oh-ho-oh. Hey-hey. Yo-ho-oh. Mostly unintelligible syllables, as if there were no real words. Countless mouths were shouting, merging into a chorus that seemed to come from the distant river beach below, but also seemed to come from distant ancient times. Mixed with the wind over the river crossing, it was more ancient and mysterious than Taoist classics. It struck the heart. Songyu stood in the wind at the hill pass, momentarily dazed. He felt it was an ancient echo of history, the work chant that had reverberated at this Liujiang ferry crossing for centuries, an imprint of the era. Just hearing a little, it already reverberated endlessly in his mind. Listening longer, he also felt it seemed like a lament under intense labor, filling the human heart with dejection and sorrow. Taoist, what are you doing? Nothing. Why aren't you walking? I'm walking now. What are they shouting? I can't make it out either. Songyu continued walking down. The Juju-bred horse and the cat followed behind. Yesterday, he had just witnessed the simple and honest joys of this era, and today he saw that it was also an era full of hardships. Perhaps these two aspects were not contradictory from the beginning. The farmers who were joyfully unrestrained at the banquet yesterday belonged to the same group of people as the hard-working and exhausted barge haulers at the ancient ferry crossing today. Or maybe contradiction was the norm in the real world. This was a scene he wouldn't be able to witness on Yinyang Mountain. Watching as he walked, he gradually reached the ferry crossing. Songyu just felt that his cloth shoes had thin soles and that stones were hurting his feet. Is there a boat to Long Commandery? I'm going to Long Commandery. Can you take a horse? My small boat can't take a horse. I can take it. Songyu followed the voice. It came from a boat with a roofed top, neither too small nor too big, but just right for the shallow beach. An old man wearing a conical bamboo hat and a woven rush raincoat stood at the bow. There were already a few people sitting in the boat. How much? Where are you going? Lingbo County. Lingbo County is too far. You can only disembark at the nearest ferry crossing. From there is still almost 100 li of mountain road. The old man sang out, his voice like a song. It will take 6 days, 200 wen per person, and a horse counts as 2 people. You need to bring your own fodder. As for you, if you don't mind the fishy smell of river fish, I can provide meals on board. The Calico cat at his feet looked up at Songyu. Songyu met her gaze and understood tacitly. Do you charge for cats? Why would I charge for a cat? Altogether 500 wen. How about this price? 550. Board the boat and we'll set off immediately. I'm giving only coins. Sir, please board the boat. Songyu led his horse and the cat onto the boat. When were the commonly seen small copper coins? Few years ago, the government had issued some larger denominations, worth 5 or 10 wen each. However, these new coins didn't weigh 5 or 10 times as much as the regular coins. Even though they were recently issued, and hadn't depreciated much yet under the currently flourishing Great Yan dynasty, the public's acceptance was gradually declining. A large coin worth 10 regular wen couldn't actually be used as 10 regular when in everyday life as a discount was always expected. So the boatman agreed readily. Let the horse stay at the bow. It won't be afraid of water, will it? No. That's good. As for its waste, I'll take care of it. It will try to do its business in the river. If you are willing to dock along the way, it will go ashore to relieve itself. Your horse is obedient, and your words are refined, ha. When do we set off? Right now. The boat easily drifted away from the shore, lightly and gently. Xianxia looked back, seeing 4 other people on the boat. A scholar clasping a book, and a family of 3 consisting of a couple with a young daughter. He wondered why they were traveling long journeys. He also had no time to pay attention to this. He just stood at the bow watching the ancient ferry crossing at the shallow beach recede. Listening to that desolate, mysterious ancient chanting, his mind seemed full of thoughts, yet empty. The scholar behind him saw he was wearing a Taoist robe and struck up a conversation. Are you a Taoist priest? I grew up in a Taoist temple. Have you never seen a ferry crossing before? This is my first time. Haha, it's novel the first time, but it becomes mundane after a while. The scholar was chatty and warmly invited. The wind is strong outside. Why not come sit in the cabin? To be honest, I am also fond of Taoist classics and magic. I even brought a Taoist classic along on this journey. There are still several days' journey to Long Commandery. Let's drink wine and chat, wouldn't it be delightful? Xianxia remained at the bow, smiling. The barge haulers, chanting was further and further away, but strangely the further away they were, the more charm and power it possessed. The scholar didn't know what he was thinking. How can Taoist classics compare to this? Chapter 44, so wonderful that words can't describe it. The sky was turning dark, though the horizon was still bright. The mountains had become deep shadows. The yellow and blue light in the horizon, along with the silhouettes of the mountains, were reflected together in the water, tinting the river. A small boat drifted along the waves, its light appearing no larger than a soybean seed from a distance. It was also reflected in the water, but its reflection was ruffled by the evening breeze. The boatman sat upright at the bow, holding a long pole. The fishing line merged with the water, creating small ripples. The boatman suddenly raised the pole, simultaneously reaching out to catch something. It was just a small fish, which he casually tossed into the cabin. Plop, 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 the fish flopped around in the cabin. The boatman just smiled at the Calico cat and said, "This is for you." Meow. The Calico cat responded with thanks before lowering her head to eat. The scholar was also sitting at the side of the boat, enjoying the breeze and watching the boatman fish. Occasionally, he would reach down to touch the water, which was so close that he didn't even need to fully extend his arm to make contact. Suddenly, he laughed and pointed to the side, saying to the boatman, "Old man, look, you've been fishing hard all this time and only caught a sharp belly not even 2 fingers wide, yet here floats a fish right up to me. It's mocking you." As he said this, he used his other hand to prop himself against the edge of the window in order to lean out, stretching his arm as if to catch the fish. "Don't catch it," the boatman immediately turned his head and said. "Huh," the scholar retracted his hand lightning fast and looked at the boatman. "Why not?" The boatman's face relaxed, and he smiled as he said to the scholar, "It's best not to catch it." "Is there a particular reason?" "Not really, it's just a habit of us boatmen and night fishers. When we see a fish floating near the water's edge, just out of easy reach, we don't touch it." The boatman continued sitting at the bow fishing, his voice drifting over through the night breeze. "Just a habit." However, the scholar seemed intrigued. "Please tell me more." "There's nothing more to it. There must be some particular reason. Please don't make it difficult for me." "I wouldn't dare to make it difficult for you. You don't know, but I have loved hearing this kind of stories and rumors about gods and ghosts all my life. Please tell me." "There's really nothing to it. It's just that although this fish looks near and just out of reach, reaching out further increases the risk of falling into the water." "Is that all?" "You must bear in mind that nothing falls out of the sky for free. Most things that come for no reason aren't simple." The boatman sat still, focused on his fishing. "Just like this fish you see in front of you, it seems like you only need to lean down, reach out, and grab it. However, once you lean down, if there's a little demon or little ghost beneath the water, waiting for you to be careless." The boatman trailed off, smiling. "Oh," the scholar raised his eyebrow, both fearful and excited. "Have such things happened before on this Liujiang River?" The boatman continued smiling, but remained silent, focused only on his fishing. "Don't be stingy with your stories, old man. They're really not worth mentioning. If you're willing to tell, I'll pay for some tea." The boatman could see that the scholar was genuinely interested in such stories, so he could no longer decline. After some hesitation, he began patiently telling his tales. When I was young, I heard people say that it's best not to touch fish that you can catch by just taking a step into the water, or pluck medicinal herbs you can pick by just talking a step closer to the edge of a cliff. However, I was full of youthful vigor. I normally believed these tales. However, when it really happens to you, you often forget until you witness these kinds of events happen yourself. There were indeed many strange stories that happened on this Liujiang River. The boatman told several stories in a row. They were about people like the scholar, who coveted petty gains and thought good fortune had fallen from the sky, or people who witnessed someone falling into water while walking along the riverbank in the middle of the night, etc. In the end, they were harmed by demons or ghosts. Songyu also listened quietly from the side. Without them noticing, the fish that had floated close to the water surface just half a meter away from the boat had already disappeared. The demons, ghosts, and monsters of this world were mostly like this. When it came to ghosts, they had to put in some thought if they wanted to harm people unless they had a high level of cultivation. As for demons, the differences were so great that it was hard to generalize. For example, the fierce tiger they encountered a few days ago. The tiger was the lord of the mountain. Even though it hadn't gained enlightenment yet and was merely somewhat smarter than its peers, it knew how to hunt weaker prey and avoid the strong as well as how to distinguish traps. It was already too much for Liu family village's strong young men and hunters to deal with. If it had intended to harm humans, the consequences would have been dire. However, if it was just a rabbit, even if it gained enlightenment and became a demon, it might still be easily killed by a man's stick or snatched away by an eagle if it was careless. Take foxes, which commonly appeared in stories, for example. They were carnivores at least. Many had become demons and taken human form. Yet, until they attained higher levels of cultivation, they must still avoid sharp-eyed village dogs when they infiltrated human society. These were inborn differences. When one thought carefully, there were certain wondrous parts in them. Minor ghosts and demons did not have sufficient ability or power. If they wanted to harm humans, they had to rely on deceit and temptation to lower their victims' guard and lure them into traps. However, they might not always be malevolent. Many water creatures that gained wisdom used fish as bait to catch birds or other fish, and catching a human might just be accidental. It also didn't always mean there was a demon or ghost involved. Boats on the water traveled hundreds or more than 1,000 li, often through uninhabited areas. Some boatmen who harbored evil intentions might kill their passengers and blame it on demons or ghosts. After the boatman finished, the scholar loudly expressed his enjoyment. "I'm not a good storyteller." "Never say that, old man. These kinds of stories are most captivating when told in the plainest way as if they had happened right next to you," the scholar said, hurrying back into the boat. "I need to record them down quickly before I forget, or I would have wasted the 5 when I paid for tea." Several stories for a tea fee of 5 wen did seem worthwhile. The river became chilly in the night, and it became cold outside. Songyu patted the jujubred horse's neck. "I'll have to trouble you to stay here for a few days. Don't make any noise unless necessary. If anything happens, just call out loudly for me." The jujubred horse stood still and silent. However, it was the scholar's laughter which came from behind. "Young mister, you're truly interesting. It's still considered common to talk to cats, but now you're talking to a horse. Could it be that your horse has already become a demon and can understand human speech?" Songyu smiled and turned his head to look over. While the boatman was telling his stories earlier, he had already caught several large fish and started brewing soup in advance. Now the little stove was steaming, and amidst the steam, the scholar was using his clothes box as a table and had laid out some rough straw paper. He put the brush he was holding into his mouth to wet it, then immersed himself in writing. Songyu also entered the cabin and took a casual look. They were the stories the boatman had just told. The scholar was immersed in writing madly hereafter and stopped talking. And he looked at the boatman. He carefully removed the meat on the fish and sliced it thinly. When the soup brewed with fish bones and fish heads was ready, he placed the translucent, exquisite fish slices into the pot. After a brief boil, they turned snowy white, and the aroma became even more tempting. "There's nothing tasty to eat on the boat. It's always these dishes all day long. I hope you passengers won't mind," the boatman said, retrieving bowls and chopsticks from a low cabinet. The scholar had also finished writing just in time. He didn't stand on ceremony and immediately went to get the bowls, acting as if he was the owner of the boat. He called Songyu and the family of 3 over, serving them soup. Songyu received a bowl and thanked him. The air on the river was chilly, and the hot steam from the bowl in his palms contrasted sharply with the cold outside, bringing some sense of comfort even before taking a sip. The scholar's voice rang out first. Old man, you have excellent cooking skills. It's nothing special, really. It tastes the same no matter who cooks it, the boatman laughed. You just feel good after the first sip. After a few more days of the same fish soup or porridge with fish meat, you'll get tired of it. You're being modest, old man. Before the new year, I just traveled up the Liujiang River to Yizhu. At the time, the boatman on that boat also made the same dish, but it didn't taste as good as yours. I dare not receive such praise. As Songyu listened, he also lowered his head to take a sip. The fish soup was seasoned only with salt and ginger, giving it a somewhat salty taste while removing any fishiness. Freshly caught fish had a natural sweetness, but there were no other flavors, making it ordinary so far. The key lay in the fish slices that were added later. Fish meat had been sliced very thin, with no bones in sight, requiring some knife skills and patience. The fish meat added later was very enjoyable to eat. It was only boiled briefly in the pot, so the fish skin was still slightly crispy and springy when first eaten. It was completely different from the method where the fish meat was put into the pot from the beginning and stewed together. The boatman had indeed been modest. Oh, it was indeed not particularly fancy. Simple dishes are sometimes the hardest to perfect. This simplicity was a kind of art in itself. Ha! Songyu exhaled a warm breath, feeling utterly relaxed. He glanced at the Calico cat beside him. Would you like some, Lady Calico? The Calico cat didn't respond, just shrank back. The scholar found this amusing again. After finishing his fish soup, he struck up a conversation with Songyu again. Where are you from, mister? I'm from Yizhu. Oh, which part of Yizhu? Linquan County. Linquan County. The scholar immediately seemed intrigued. I also visited Linquan County during my trip to Yizhu. And you are? I actually still have not introduced myself properly and really been quite rude. The scholar hurriedly smiled and cupped his hands in greeting. My surname is Fu, like the Fu in Teifu, Imperial Preceptor, and my name is Yu. My style name is Wendong. I come from Long Commandery, Shuzhou. I'm Songyu, and my style name is Minglai. I'm a hermit from Linquan County, Yizhu. Did you cultivate in Linquan County? You seem very surprised. Not exactly surprised, I just have a question to ask. The scholar cupped his hands again. Since you cultivated in Linquan County, have you heard of Hidden Dragon Temple on Yinyang Mountain? I have heard of it. Songyu remained calm as he looked at him. To be honest, my trip to Yizhu was firstly to visit friends and relatives, and secondly to go to Yinyang Mountain to seek Hidden Dragon Temple. The scholar couldn't help shaking his head with regret. However, I searched all over when I reached Linquan County. I managed to find Yinyang Mountain, but though I searched the whole mountain thoroughly, there wasn't a single brick or roof tile to be seen on the mountain, let alone a temple. Is Hidden Dragon Temple very famous? Where did you hear about it? It's not particularly famous, but I enjoy going everywhere to collect folktales about gods, ghosts, and demons. I discovered by chance that several remarkable rumors that I have collected happen to mention this temple. Out of curiosity, I took this opportunity to go and seek it. Unfortunately, I returned with nothing and wasted many days. He looked at Songyu as he spoke. Could it be that the Hidden Dragon Temple isn't on Yinyang Mountain? Or is there another Yinyang Mountain? Did I get the wrong information from my inquiries? You might not know this, Songyu continued to tell him indifferently. That Hidden Dragon Temple is quite peculiar. Even if worshippers from the foot of the mountain wish to offer incense, they can only find it when the temple owner wishes to open its doors. At other times, even if you followed a familiar path, you could only return empty-handed. Really? It's true. How marvelous. I've heard that Hidden Dragon Temple's owner is lazy by nature, with only one diligent disciple. You might not have missed the location, but simply didn't go at the right time. So wonderful that words can't describe it. The scholar widened his eyes, clapping his hands. A temple so miraculous must be a famous abode on a celestial mountain. If I have another chance in the future, I will surely visit again. What year in the future will that be? Unfortunately, probably many years later. May your wish come true. Thank you, thank you. Songyu leaned back in the cabin. Lady Calico already lay beside him. He rested his hand on her back, sharing warmth, and gradually became sleepy too. Chapter 45, The Story Writing Scholar. When he woke up in the early morning, it was particularly chilly outside. Songyu borrowed the boatman's fishing pole and sat in the place where the boatman had sat last night, wearing the cloak given by Prefect Yu. The cold air rose from the river in front of him, the mist-covered water was silent, and the surroundings were quiet. The fishing line extended into the water, occasionally creating small ripples that were hard to notice in the fog. Looking around, he saw green mountains everywhere. The other boat passengers either stayed inside the boat or were still sleeping. Only Lady Calico sat quietly and properly on his lap, her eyes fixed on the point where the fishing line met the water. The boatman had already started cooking breakfast. "What should we do if we don't catch anything?" Xianxia turned his head and quietly asked the cat. Lady Calico raised her head at his words, her eyes very calm. After a moment, she lowered her head and raised her paw to lick it. Xianxia did not understand what she meant. There was a pounding sound behind him. It was the boatman chopping fish bones. Lady Calico's ears twitched at the sound. She then raised her head and softly said to him, "It doesn't matter if we don't catch anything." Xianxia heard it, but his expression was still very calm. But he suddenly thought of a question. Lady Calico usually could only catch mice at night. If she didn't manage to catch birds or insects, etc. during the day, or if no one came to offer her food, what did she eat before she met him? In any case, he had never heard Lady Calico complain about hunger. He had always thought it was because he prepared food in time and she could also get food from elsewhere. Now it seems that it might not be like that. "What if you're hungry?" "I'm used to being hungry." Xianxia lifted the fishing rod, and a silver-white flash left the water, pulled by the line. It landed precisely in his hand. "Got one." This fish was Lady Calico's breakfast. At the same time, a voice came from behind. "What a refined and elegant attitude of mind, mister." No need to guess, it was that scholar surnamed Fu. Footsteps quickly approached from behind. Fishing in the cold river, gazing at the mountains, conversing with a cat. How many people wish to have such interests like you, but lack this frame of mind? The footsteps stopped behind Xianxia. Seeing him retract the rod, the scholar was curious. "You just caught this sharpbelly, why stop fishing?" "It's enough for the cat." "Wonderful." The scholar carried another folding stool over and sat beside Xianxia. "Since you came from Linquin County, did you pass through Yidu on the way?" "Yidu is prosperous, so I naturally had to visit." "Indeed, I've traveled extensively for many years and have seldom seen a city as prosperous and enlightened as Yidu." The scholar paused briefly. "Except for Yancheng, I haven't been to Changing yet." "How is Yancheng?" 10 li of spring breezes, myriad twinkling lights, dreamlike prosperity." "Then I should visit." Xianxia put away the fishing rod and returned it to its original place. The scholar stood and turned to look at him. "I haven't asked yet where you are headed." "I'm traveling the world, temporarily with no fixed destination." "Haha, life should be like that." The scholar couldn't help raising his eyebrows and clapping in delight. He felt this gentleman was very much to his liking. "But why are you going to Lingbo?" "To deliver a letter on behalf of an old man selling tea I met on the way." "Just to deliver a letter?" "I don't know where to go." "Wonderful, wonderful." The scholar couldn't help but clap his hands, then shook his head. "It's a pity I've already been out for a long time on this trip, otherwise I should accompany you on your journey. Perhaps we will meet again if it's fated." "Oh, right." The scholar seemed to remember something just then. "Since you passed through Yidu, did you hear about the notorious case of the earth-traversing burglar in Yidu last year, and the affair concerning the master from Taeyan Temple that the people are abuzz with?" Xianxia glanced down at Lady Calico, who was eating the fish, and calmly replied, "I've heard about it." "Could you tell me about it?" "Haven't you already heard about it?" "Indeed, I have." The scholar sighed, "but I only heard people discussing some of it in the tea house. Even after paying money for tea, I didn't get the full story, which is quite a regret." Xianxia couldn't help but glance at him. "You really are a fan of such stories." "To be honest, it's my greatest hobby. Besides this, I'm also compiling a book, currently untitled, which will include all the mystical and fantastic events in the world. Ideally real and interesting ones. That's why I'm so eager to collect such stories." "I see." "Aha, I'm not worried you'll laugh at me." The scholar actually laughed as he spoke. "I've had little interest in classical studies or political essays since childhood. I'm still very dull even though I've studied them up till now. It's unlikely I'll ever pass the provincial level imperial exam in this lifetime. If this book comes together successfully, firstly, I would have completed something I've always wanted to do. Secondly, though it may not be a work worthy of pride or even considered high culture, it could perhaps let me leave my name behind in history like the high-ranking court officials of past dynasties." Hearing this, Xianxia thought seriously about it, and he thought it might indeed be possible. As the scholar said, such books were only considered miscellaneous works in this era, not high culture, and were even scorned by some old Confucian scholars. Some writers wouldn't even use their names for fear of losing face. Yet these books were widely popular in this era, much more so than the famous classics. And there weren't many similar books on the market. A book like Chronicles of Peach and Plum Seasons, though not well written and containing many esoteric elements only comprehensible to Taoists, still quickly became popular across the country. Why? Everyone was interested in such stories, but there were too few who could write them well. If this scholar wrote well, it could indeed be passed down through the ages. Song Yu naturally didn't have the decadent mindset of this era and didn't disdain such miscellaneous books. Thinking about it carefully, being able to contribute to a book that could be passed down for 1,000 years was quite interesting. Even if by the time it reached future generations, he would already long be nothing more than a pile of white bones and yellow dust. Coincidentally, he had listened to old Mr. Zhang tell a section in detail at the Cloud Talk canopy in the northern market before leaving. I have many such stories. How fortunate that the journey ahead is still long. Telling them will take a long time. Let's drink to it. On one condition. Please state it, mister. I'll tell one story, and you must tell one as well, so we are even and owe each other nothing. Deal? I'll start with the earth-traversing burglar. I'm all ears. This story begins several years ago. The burglar's surname was Mo. He lived outside Yiduan Lotus Village and was originally a down-and-out scholar. Song Yu's voice was not loud. He spoke softly. He roughly followed old Mr. Zhang's story structure, recalling it from memory, naturally infusing it with his own style. At the same time, he omitted old Mr. Zhang's storytelling techniques and interjections. It became more like an ordinary neighbor sitting under the banyan tree at the village entrance during dusk, telling you a story that happened close to him not long ago. The scholar was mesmerized, deeply immersed in the story. Even the family of 3 couldn't help but sit in the cabin and listen. The little girl widened her big, dark eyes. Likely there was a world full of mysterious wonders in her heart. Just as he finished, the aroma of porridge filled the air. They ate breakfast first. The clear porridge was bland, yet just right for the cold morning on the river. After breakfast, it was the scholar's turn to tell a story. During my travels in Jianghu, I once heard a story from a recluse on a high mountain. Please go ahead. A few hundred years ago, Jianghu was far less prosperous than it is now. It was even occupied by a great demon, and all the mountains away from the roads were its hunting grounds. Mountain demons even often descended to harm people. During the final years of the previous dynasty, amidst political chaos and the dire poverty of the people, a Taoist passed through, bearing a green jade sword. He battled the demon on Haidu Mountain for 6 months, and finally slew it with his sword, bringing peace to Jianghu. Due to a lack of details, the scholar's story was much briefer. And that Taoist priest was said to have come from Hidden Dragon Temple. As for where Hidden Dragon Temple is, the story did not say, and no one knows. I heard the name of Hidden Dragon Temple on Yinyang Mountain in another story, and boldly guessed it might be the same temple. All right, Song Yu displayed a helpless expression. Subconsciously trying to recall, he couldn't remember any grandmaster who was skilled with the sword a few hundred years ago. However, it didn't matter. It might be a mistake in the story. Perhaps a grandmaster might have spent some time learning to use the sword after descending the mountain, or he might not have remembered clearly. All were common occurrences. The main point was that he actually wasn't very interested in listening. Past owners of Hidden Dragon Temple rarely left records of their travels, and even Song Yu's master seldom talked to him about her youthful experiences, fearing it would influence future generations. Everyone should have their own unique path. As for grandmasters that he had never met from far too long ago, they were not much different from strangers to Song Yu. What do you think of this story, mister? The story is grand, but not interesting. I didn't expect you'll happen to agree with me. The scholar laughed. I have a cousin who usually loves to request stories from me. He prefers this type. The grander the story, the more gods and Buddhas, the stronger the magic powers the characters have, the more he finds it interesting. He doesn't care about anything else. However, I don't quite like this. Song Yu thought for a moment, and knew this scholar must have specially told a story concerning Hidden Dragon Temple, because he knew Song Yu was from Linquan County and had heard of it. No need to tell any more stories about Hidden Dragon Temple. What kind do you like? Interesting ones. Then we'll not count the one I told just now, and I'll compensate you with another story. No need to go that far. No need to be polite. Since I'm compiling these stories into a book, I don't lack 1 or 2 stories. Out on the road, everyone we meet are all strangers, so it's best to be unconstrained. You're right. Song Yu no longer stopped him. He just looked at the little girl at the side. The little girl was listening to their stories while playing with the water at the side of the boat. Suddenly, she seemed to be attracted by a light in the water and leaned over the boat's edge to get a closer look. An enormous dark shadow was swimming indistinctly underwater. Song Yu tapped the boat's edge with his finger, catching the little girl's attention. He smiled and reminded her not to play with the water. After she sat back properly, he relaxed. Glancing at the river, the dark shadow had already disappeared. As they talked, the light boat had already passed countless mountains. Chapter 46. Mist envelops the cold waters, moonlight covers the sand. The journey was long, and this boat did not drift on the river all day and night. Every evening it would always dock. Occasionally, when they came across a ferry crossing or a place suitable for docking, the boatman would usually seek their opinions and temporarily dock. Songyu would then lead his horse off the boat to relieve itself. At various ferry crossings, there were often women selling food. When Songyu found something he liked, he would buy a little to add some flavor to his meals. The boatman's words were not wrong. The meals on the boat were fine for 1 or 2 meals, but after 2 more days, they began to taste bland and fishy. Fortunately, Songyu had brought some dry rations with him. Unknowingly, the boat journey had already lasted 6 days. As they approached Long Commandery, the scenery on both sides began to change. The riverbanks had wide flatlands. At least the fields were flat and filled with rapeseed flowers that happened to be blooming in early spring. They appeared as a dazzling golden expanse, and the wind carried their sweet fragrance. On this land were countless bizarre hills that rose abruptly. Unlike normal mountains, they were steep and small, like bamboo shoots. They were difficult for people to climb and not much worth the effort to do so. These countless small hills blocked the view in the distance, overlapping like a forest of mountains, obstructing the line of sight. It wouldn't be surprising if people believed these hills were the domain of demons. "We've reached the boundary of Long Commandery," the boatman said as he rowed the boat. "Long Commandery's mountains are like this, clustered, and most of them can't be climbed. There's no space on top, so people have to walk between the hills. It's very beautiful. Everyone says so. Are there any that can be climbed?" "There are." The boatman's face was full of wrinkles, but it bore a smile. He enjoyed talking with this gentleman. "You must go to Anking. Anking County has the best views. Once you arrive there, just ask around, and you'll naturally know how to enjoy the place. If you ask how I know, haha, every year many great officials, poets, and gifted scholars come here to see the scenery, and they almost all head to Anking." "Thank you, old sir." Songyu just stood at the bow, gazing around. The sun gradually sank westward. Before sinking below the horizon, it first disappeared into the forest-like clustered hills resembling bamboo shoots. Last rays of sunlight slanted down from the jagged, uneven mountain tops, casting a pale golden hue that was clearly visible in form. Half of the river reflected the mountains and light. An old man wearing a woven rush raincoat and a conical bamboo hat rowed the boat forward, while a man wearing a Taoist robe stood at the bow. The entire river had only this little boat navigating through. "We should arrive by tonight." "Good." The boatman actually started singing loudly as he continued to row. Songyu found the scene exceptionally beautiful for a moment, and his mood lifted. "Old sir." "I'm listening." "Isn't it time to start preparing dinner?" "You're right, I'll find a place to stop. I have a piece of cured meat in my bag that was left over from before the new year. It's heavy to carry on the road, so I'd like to ask you to cook it so everyone can have a taste together." "All right." Thus, amidst the myriad mountains on the Liujiang River, a plume of cooking smoke rose again under the twilight rays of light. About 2 to 3/4 of an hour later, the scholar's hair had become somewhat greasy and tangled from several days without brushing and washing. However, he still looked full of vigor as he picked up a piece of cured meat with his chopsticks from the bowl. Cured meat was both fat and lean with a 3-layered marbling of fat. Holding it up to the oil lamp for a look, the fatty part was transparent and golden, glistening and trembling on the chopsticks. Putting it into his mouth for a taste while it was still hot, there wasn't the slightest hint of greasiness. There was only the full fragrance of the cured meat, with a hint of the refreshing scent of pine and cypress branches. It was neither too salty nor too bland. "This cured meat is excellent," the scholar immediately exclaimed in astonishment. He asked Songyu, "Did you make this yourself?" "Someone gave it to me." "Anyhow, we've benefited from you sharing your good fortune. We have to thank you." The scholar smiled as he bowed to Songyu. His chopsticks moved up and down continuously, and he said while he ate, "I just love cured meat from Yizhu, especially meat like this that had been smoked with pine and cypress branches. Nowhere else does it as well." I suddenly remembered something. "Oh, what is it?" "At Cloud Talk Canopy in the northern market of Yidu, there's an old storyteller with the surname Zhang. He's experienced, knowledgeable, and skilled in his craft, familiar with strange and interesting tales from various regions. If you go to Yidu to visit your friends again, you could go to the northern market to seek this Mr. Zhang. If you're polite and don't mind spending some money on tea, he certainly won't disappoint you." The scholar didn't think that he would suddenly say something like this. He immediately put aside his jovial demeanor, laid down his chopsticks, and solemnly bowed to Songyu. It was just compiling a miscellaneous book, and few people would take it seriously. He even aspired to leave a mark in history, and was already fortunate if he wasn't disdained and sneered at. Yet, this sudden advice already made him feel genuinely valued by this gentleman that he had met by chance, evoking a sense of their being kindred spirits for a moment. Mister, I find it difficult to repay such kindness. Just compile your book with all your heart. Even if people of the present age don't understand, future generations might treasure it. Of course. Songyu stopped speaking. He just picked up the cured meat to eat and sipped some diluted wine. The wine had been provided by the scholar, while the family of 3 brought over some preserved fruit. It didn't matter whose contribution was more valuable as they all shared in the meal. It was best this way so no one owes anyone anything. Gradually, night fell. There was moonlight that night. The boatman refused to dock, relying on the moonlight and his experience to continue navigating, determined to deliver them to their destination so he could return the next day. Soon they heard the boatman called out, "We've arrived at Anking." The boat gradually docked with a thud. Everyone, except Songyu, hurriedly got up. The scholar, carrying his box of clothes, and the husband from the family of 3 both cupped their hands to Songyu in farewell. "We were fortunate to travel together. Farewell. Often felt I have benefited considerably from our conversation these past few days on the same boat. Even if you're not a Taoist master, you're still a cultivating recluse. It's a pity the journey is short, and I can't spend a few more days with you." The scholar, carrying his chest, looked at Songyu with great regret. "However, the affairs of the world are often like this. Meetings and partings are all fated. Farewell, and you must come look for me if you come to Anking for sightseeing in the future. Everyone, please be careful on the slippery night road." Songyu stood at the bow, cupping his hands, watching them disembark and leave. The boatman rowed again, and the boat left the shore once more. At that moment, they heard the scholar's voice. "Wait." He stood on the stone steps of the ferry crossing, cupping his hands once more to Songyu. "Previously, I felt that people in the jianghu who meet by chance need not ask about each other's origin, so I didn't ask you where you originally used to cultivate. But after spending a few days together, I increasingly feel that you understand my heart very well. I would like to boldly ask where you reside. If fate allows, should I return to Yizhu in the future, I should visit you." Yinyang Mountain, Hidden Dragon Temple. In the swift nighttime current, the boat quickly moved far away. The boatman chuckled. That scholar is good in every way, except he's a bit too noisy. Songyu smiled without answering. He just asked, "How much farther to Lingbo County?" "Still quite far, but that part of the water route has a water demon causing trouble. That water demon is huge, capsizing ordinary boats easily. Many people died a few years back, and now no one dares to sail there. Fortunately, Lingbo is the last stretch. Those heading to Lingbo all disembark at the nearest old ferry crossing, about 2 hours away." The boatman paused. "But you must be careful. Once you reach the shore from the old ferry crossing, there are many mountain bandits on the road to Lingbo County. While I haven't heard of them killing anyone, they have frequently robbed many people. If ordinary passengers are taking this road, I advise them to give some money and speak nicely if they meet bandits in order to avoid physical harm. Some bandits, if principled, might even leave a portion behind." "Thanks for the warning. But you're different. I've heard that principled mountain bandits, besides not robbing government couriers and scholars taking exams, also avoid robbing Taoist priests, Buddhist monks, lone young women, and lost children. Haha, as for how many mountain bandits adhere to this, I don't know. Is it easy to get passengers for your return trip?" "Not as many as the other way." "How long will the return journey take?" 10 or 11 days, the boatman laughed. "This trip was quite lucky, encountering a family and then you. Usually I don't carry this many people in one trip. It must be hard work." By these calculations, the boatman could earn at least more than 1,000 yen per round trip. With good luck, maybe over 2,000, and even with bad luck, at least an estimated several hundred it seemed. He couldn't make 2 trips a month, but he wouldn't make just one either. The income was decent. However, it was a very long journey and hard work, having to row the boat and cook meals all the way. "Hard work earns a comfortable living." The boatman's voice mingled with the sound of splashing water. Songyu's eyes brightened, momentarily feeling touched by the boatman's steadfast and contented attitude, and also surprised such words came from the mouth of an ordinary boatman. But he quickly realized this was actually arrogance, both disrespectful and inappropriate. Overall, the good words felt like a cool breeze during the 3 hottest periods in the summer, drinking a cup of hot tea during the 27 days after the winter solstice, or encountering a stroke of luck when going out. They were a nice surprise and also made him feel joyful. His heart softened, and the moonlight also became much more gentle. About 2 hours later, Xianxia placed his bedding bag on the horse's back. He watched the calico cat leap nimbly ashore from the prow. He himself also subsequently stepped out. He then turned back to look at the horse behind. "Take it slowly, no rush." The water rippled, the boat slowly swayed, and the sound of the water splashing filled the air. Under the moonlight, the horse carefully and nervously approached the bow, ready to jump ashore. Upon hearing his words, it actually withdrew its hooves, found a more stable spot, and then steadily disembarked. The boatman watched from the prow, smiling but silent. Having lived long and seen much, actually some truths come naturally without needing books. He had long noticed this passenger's extraordinary nature, but saw no need to pry since he was just a boatman. "Mister, take care on the night road." "Old sir, please go slowly too." With a push of the oar, the little boat left the shore again. When the boat had moved far away, Xianxia finally turned his gaze back. In the moonlight, the river water shimmered, with glittering waves and water splashes against the shore. The cold air rose from the river's surface, which reflected the bright moon, and was coated with a layer of haze by the moonlight. It looked like scattered stars, and the river water glowed. Such a scene was nothing short of an immortal's realm. Lady Calico lowered her head to look around. She had reached a new place and started running everywhere again, sniffing here and there, seemingly ignoring his words. "Let's go." "Okay." The Taoist led the way as always, the horse followed, and the calico cat darted everywhere until she was asked to explore the way ahead. Only then did she obediently walk in front. It was time to find a place to camp for the night. In the 2nd year of Minged, in the middle of the 1st month of the lunar year, they finished their journey on the Liujiang River.